What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, May 26th, 2026, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 15:26 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East and from Europe. So if you guys are not aware, yesterday evening the U.S. conducted what they call self-defense strikes on Iran. They targeted some IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps vessels that were trying to lay mines in the Strait of Hormuz, and then they also targeted some surface-to-air missile batteries in the Bandar Abbas region of Iran's, that's southern Iran near the Strait of Hormuz. This happened yesterday evening. And now we're hearing that Trump will be making a rare trip to Camp David this Wednesday, that's tomorrow, to hold a full cabinet meeting on Iran. And we're hearing that all cabinet members, including the outgoing Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, will be joining. And we're hearing that this is his first visit to Camp David since June of last year. And this would be only his second time to Camp David since he started his second term. And what you're looking at here is an FAA flight restriction over the Camp David area that extends all the way up into southern Pennsylvania and all the way down into Virginia. So massive no-fly zone. You can see that big red circle here. Okay, looks like probably about 100 miles around Camp David, extending all the way up almost to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is absolutely insane. And looks like it extends all the way into Martinsburg, West Virginia, Frederick, Maryland. Absolutely insane. Hagerstown, Maryland, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, all within this massive no-fly zone. So this is a very, very serious meeting that's going to be taking place tomorrow. I think Trump will decide to launch a massive, unprecedented attack on Iran after this meeting tomorrow. And this afternoon, we're hearing fresh reports coming from the British Maritime Trade Organization that a tanker exploded on its port side 60 nautical miles east of Muscat in Oman. This is directly in the Strait of Hormuz, so well offshore, 60 nautical miles, guys. So that's probably about 70 miles or so, standard ground miles, off the coast of Oman in the Strait of Hormuz, blowing up on its side. Very, very concerning. And the Wall Street Journal is reporting today that progress in U.S.-Iran negotiations has slowed as the U.S. and Iran continue to disagree over the nuclear program and the lifting of sanctions. So those are the two major sticking points there. And Trump posted on his Truth Social app that Iran's enriched uranium will either be turned over to the U.S. or destroyed in a secondary location under the watch of the Atomic Energy Commission. Okay, so basically the UN would supervise the destruction of the enriched uranium, but Iran is not going to do that. Okay, they're not going to give away their enriched uranium. They're not going to let it be destroyed. They've already said this numerous times, okay? So very, very serious. And a U.S. official told Al Jazeera that Iran attempted to attack U.S. forces over the past 24 hours. One of the incidents included launching missiles at American fighter jets, and that resulted in the U.S. conducting those self-defense strikes on the boats that were trying to lay mines and then the surface-to-air missile sites. We actually have footage of that. I'll show you in just a moment here. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that reaching in Iran agreement still remains possible despite recent strikes. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Iran issued a statement regarding the strikes carried out yesterday by U.S. forces near Bandar Abbas, calling the incident a ceasefire violation. Okay, so Iran is treating this as a ceasefire violation. They're really pissed off about it. The U.S. is not really worried about it at all. So complete different point of view on that. And Pakistan immediately rejected Trump's suggestion that a deal with Iran should be tied to normalization of ties with Israel, saying that the two issues are not linked and cannot be made so. All right, so if you guys are not aware, right before the holiday weekend, as we went into the holiday weekend, Trump said that he wants Iran to sign the Abraham Accords, which would be like a massive peace treaty in the Middle East that would include Israel and Iran, and it would basically force Iran to have good ties with Israel. Looks like Iran is not going to go for that. But just the fact that Trump proposed it is very concerning, because that's very similar to what the Bible says is going to happen in the book of Revelation during the tribulation period. There's a peace treaty between Israel and all its enemies in the Middle East. Okay, so potentially Trump could be ushering in this peace treaty, the biblical covenant with many, okay, via the Abraham Accords. We'll have to wait and see, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen right now, because Iran does not want to normalize ties with Israel. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump are now currently, right now, holding a phone call this afternoon, according to Israeli Channel 12. And Netanyahu just concluded a security cabinet meeting, likely related to the upcoming expansion of strikes on Lebanon and the Iran situation. And we have a major update coming from Israel. If you guys are not aware, apparently Israel is going to be expanding strikes on Hezbollah. We're hearing also that Hezbollah has been intensifying their drone attacks today on Israel. Apparently several Hezbollah drones attacked targets in northern Israel. And a U.S. official told Al Jazeera that Hezbollah has ignored repeated requests to stop firing at Israel, including a final warning, and says Israel will respond to attacks on its forces and civilians. He said, quote, "This is not the Biden administration." So very interesting. Looks like the U.S. is now siding with Israel rather than kind of being in the middle. And yesterday, Israel approved Operation Arrows of Fire, a massive military plan that includes striking targets deep inside of Lebanon, especially the Beirut area. And Israeli media reported yesterday that the war in Lebanon will expand potentially as soon as tonight. Okay, so Israel is planning this massive Operation Arrows of Fire, massive expansion of their campaign against Hezbollah. And Iran's Speaker of the National Security Council said that Iran will not remain silent. And he was talking about the expansion of the war in Lebanon. Okay, so Iran is pissed off about that. And we're hearing that Iran has formally warned Washington that any Israeli strikes on Beirut or its southern suburbs would seriously jeopardize ongoing efforts to end the Iran war and could derail the diplomatic track altogether. Okay, and the IDF Homefront Command announced the closure of schools in northern Israel starting today due to the expected escalation with Hezbollah in the coming days. So this is very, very serious, guys. Israel will be massively expanding their attacks on Hezbollah. And we are hearing reports of mass evacuations coming from Beirut, ongoing since Israel announced the expansion of their campaign against Hezbollah yesterday. So massive evacuations ongoing. So yeah, guys, forget about peace. It's not going to happen. There will be an escalation. I've been saying this for months. And the fact that Trump is meeting in Camp David, and then remember, he met with Xi Jinping, what, just a week ago? So something is going on, guys. And what you're looking at here is video footage released from the U.S. Central Command showing HIMARS strikes on Iran yesterday. So you can see the HIMARS vehicles there, high mobility artillery rocket system. They're launching short-range ballistic missiles here at Iran, striking those targets that they talked about, okay? And then here we have footage of massive Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon. You can see this huge plume of smoke here in the countryside. Here's another big plume of smoke. Here's some suburb, I think, of Beirut, or maybe somewhere in southern Lebanon. You can see this rubble here. So massive strikes on Lebanon have already started. And then here we have video footage released by Iran showing them apparently shooting down a US MQ-9 Reaper drone. So here you can see they're tracking it on thermal, and then they launch some kind of missile at it, and it blows up. Okay, so apparently we've already lost like 30 of these drones since the war with Iran started. And then here they released this footage. We don't know if this is real or fake, but they're showing how they're tracking a US F-35. They didn't actually shoot it down, obviously, but you can see the heat plume from the F-35 flying through the air. They're tracking it on thermal here, okay? So the fact that they can actually track our fighter jets is extremely concerning, okay? But then shooting them down is another thing, because they are stealthy, so it's hard for those missiles to lock on. And this update was sponsored by NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply is doing a $100 discount on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the discount, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com. The link is in the description down below. The normal price for their 3-month kit is $800, and they're selling it for $700. That's $700 for 3 months of emergency food, up to 2,000 calories per day for 3 months, and it has a shelf life of 25 years, all packed within rugged, watertight buckets that don't take up a lot of space. You don't have to worry about rotating anything. You don't have to monitor expiration dates. You don't need a massive place to keep all your food. You can fit all this food in a tiny closet in a studio apartment. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $100 off the NYPrepper Supply 3-month emergency food supply, and the link is in the description below this video. And I wanted to update you guys on the situation with Russia. We have some massive escalation happening right now in Eastern Europe. First of all, we're hearing apparently of unusual radio activity coming out of Belarus, specifically at the Lithuanian-Belarusian border. Also, we're hearing that the Belarusian military radio signals and activity have increased by over 200% today in the last couple of hours. And we're also hearing of unknown ISR, that's intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, drone telemetry over Belarus. So some kind of enhanced radio activity in Belarus, unusual activity on the border with Lithuania. So something is about to go down, and we are hearing that Russia is planning another massive attack on Ukraine. They launched a bunch of missiles at Ukraine over the weekend, but the Russian Foreign Ministry formally warned various countries, including the U.S., that they will be striking decision-making centers in the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. Okay, and here you can see an official statement. It says here, the armed forces of the Russian Federation are beginning to deliver systematic strikes on enterprises of the Ukrainian military-industrial complex in Kyiv. We warn foreign citizens, including personnel of diplomatic missions and representations of international organizations, of the need to leave the city. Okay, so they're telling all foreign diplomats, all foreigners in this capital of Ukraine to leave because they're going to bomb Kyiv. Okay, what they're going to do, I don't know. Are they going to use a tactical nuke? Are they going to strike, the government buildings? That's what it seems like. Okay, based on the Russian statement here, saying they're going to strike decision-making centers, command posts, drone production facilities. Okay, and Ukrainian intelligence is now confirming that they do expect a large-scale combined Russian missile strike in the coming days. Okay, so this week there's going to be a massive attack, probably several massive attacks on Ukraine, and I will be covering that live here on YouTube. And the Moscow Times is reporting that Russia is now preparing to announce a new mobilization effort to draft more Russians to fight in Ukraine. So it looks like Russia will be expanding their campaign against Ukraine. They're going to be drafting more people. Okay, so the situation with Ukraine is about to escalate in a major way with this mobilization, and then this week the strikes that Russia's planning to do. We're also hearing that the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov formally warned the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio that Russian forces are beginning systematic strikes on facilities in the capital of Ukraine. Okay, so they have already warned our Secretary of State. And we're hearing also that for the first time ever, a Ukrainian drone attacked Kaliningrad, which is a Russian exclave in Eastern Europe, sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania. And Russia closed a huge part of their airspace, specifically Western Russia, starting in July. It's a massive flight ban that's going to go all the way up to 5,000 meters from ground level. So that's another huge indication that Russia is planning a major expansion of the war in Ukraine. They're closing this huge swath of their airspace in western Ukraine starting in July. And we're hearing that a British jet carrying the British Defense Secretary had its signals jammed as it flew near the Russian border this week. John Healey, the British Defense Secretary, was traveling back from to the UK from Estonia, where he had been visiting British soldiers when the electronic attack happened. And we've seen this happen before. Okay, so that's like, you know, a direct attack on, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, could you imagine if the Russian defense minister was flying into Canada and we started jamming his plane? It's a very provocative move by Russia. And the U.S. has informed European allies it plans to significantly cut its military contributions to NATO, urging them to move quickly to close the gap, according to Der Spiegel, which is a German news outlet. Okay, so with all this enhanced or unusual radioactivity in Belarus, and now the reports that the U.S. has already told its allies in Europe that they're going to significantly pull out from NATO, maybe Russia's going to finally attack the Baltics now. I mean, this is very concerning. And Syria's transitional government has located remnants of the clandestine chemical weapons program operated under former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, including raw materials and munitions similar to those used to carry out deadly gas attacks, killing over 1,000 and injuring tens of thousands during the Syrian civil war, according to Reuters. Wow. And Marco Rubio apparently has arrived in Armenia. Armenia's President Nikol Pashinyan has stated that Armenia is now actively diversifying its sources of military procurement, moving away from its traditional reliance on Russia, confirming that Armenia is now acquiring defense equipment from 6 to 7 different countries while also boosting domestic defense manufacturing capabilities. Very interesting. And North Korea fired several missiles, including at least one short-range ballistic missile, towards waters off the country's west coast today. So North Korea testing more missiles. And China is testing advanced quantum-based timing technology that could allow submarines to navigate deep underwater without GPS or satellite support, potentially reducing one of the U.S. Navy's key advantages in anti-submarine warfare near Taiwan. Very interesting. And we're hearing reports that the U.S. Vice President, J.D. Vance, is reportedly going to be abandoning his 2028 presidential run, which would pave the way for Marco Rubio to be the front runner. And the Alabama Supreme Court rejected the Republican gerrymandering map, which would have given them 2 more seats at a 7-0 advantage. Very interesting. So looks like Alabama's flipping more to the blue side. That is just totally insane. Alabama's deep south, but looks like the Democrats are gaining popularity in all these traditional Republican strongholds. Very concerning heading into midterms. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with a live update. And until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is Matt Hat Jerky. Guys, if you're a beef jerky lover like myself, you got to try Matt Hat Jerky. This is the best beef jerky I've ever had. I personally met the owner of this company at SHOT Show, and he's actually local to Pennsylvania. This company has an interesting story behind it. He founded this company when he was 11 years old. Yeah, that's right, 11 years old. He's now 19, and he makes gourmet beef jerky, the best jerky I've ever had. He's got over a dozen different flavors, and it's all sourced with U.S. beef, so no foreign beef, no nitrates, and no MSG. So it's all natural American beef jerky. And if you use my promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And you got to go to matthatjerky.com. And I'm going to leave a link in the description down below. That's matthatjerky.com. One word, matthatjerky.com. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off your entire order. And the link and the promo code are in the description down below.